Good morning, everyone. Since we have already discussed stanza by stanza Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard, today let us discuss an overall evaluation of Gray as a poet on the basis of his famous elegy written in a country churchyard. Gray was a London-born poet who was educated at Eton and Cambridge, and he wrote several odes in the Pindaric style. His well-known ode is The Progress of Poesy. Like Thomson, Gray's poetry was concerned with the world of nature. Gray's elegy, written in a country churchyard, is unique in itself, for it does not, on the face of it, mourn the death of an individual, as Milton's Lycidas does. It belongs to the landscape school of poetry and has a dominant pastoral element also. It also follows the traditions of elegiac writing and incorporates philosophic reflections on human morality also, as we have seen while we were discussing the poem. Stanza-wise discussion has pointed out how he has been meditating upon the morals of the society. The date of the composition of the elegy is uncertain. It is believed that it was written quite some time before it was published in 1751. Two events are said to have influenced the writing of the poem. The first being the death of his friend Richard West in 1742, and the second, the trial and execution of the rebel lords in 1745. From the point of view of poetic technique, the poem is excellent and was very well received by Gray's contemporaries, and it has retained its popularity ever since. It focuses on the ordinary village people who lie buried in the country churchyard and whose humble graves are contrasted with the grand monuments and tombs in the cathedral and the lives of those who have won fame and honor. It is rich in its sound effects and in poetic imagery, and it is laced with literary allusions. For example, curfew in medieval Europe was a bell that was rung in the evening to mark the time of extinguishing all fires or all light, and curfew has been here associated with the evening time. Elegy has earned immense popularity for Gray, and that has been pronounced by William Hazlitt in these words. Hazlitt calls this poem as one of the most classical productions that ever was penned by a refined and thoughtful mind, moralizing on human life. Unquote. If he had written nothing but this elegy, even then he would have never been forgotten in the literary canon. Elegy was begun in 1748 when Gray was at Stoke Poges and finished 1742. When Gray was at Stoke Poges and finished in 1750. But his long period or delay in composition has not distorted its charm at all. It was first published, as I told you just now, in 1751 and immediately earned vast popularity. In 2 years' time, it ran through 11 editions. It is one of the most widely read poems. According to Hales, quote, the elegy is perhaps the most widely known poem in English language, unquote. Many phrases and lines from it have become household words. The reason of this extensive popularity is perhaps to be sought in the fact that it expresses in an exquisite manner the ideas which touch each and every human being in this society. There is perhaps nothing that is rare or exceptional or out of the common way of life, and that is the cause of the mass appeal of the elegy. The musings are of the most natural and obvious character possible. It is difficult to conceive any one musing under similar circumstances who should not muse so. But they are not the least deep on this account. There are some feelings and thoughts that cannot grow old and hackneyed. The mystery of life does not become clearer or less solemnizing and willful for any amount of contemplation. Such inevitable, such everlasting questions as rise on the mind when one lingers in the presence of death can never lose their freshness, never cease to fascinate and to move. It is with such questions that would have been commonplaces long ages since, if they could ever be so, that the Elegy deals. It deals with them in no lofty philosophical manner, but in a simple, humble, unpretentious way, always with the truest and broadest humanity. The poet's thoughts turn to the poor. He forgets the fine tomes inside the church and thinks only of the mouldering heaps in the churchyard. Hence, the problem that spatially suggests itself is the potential greatness when they lived of the rude forefathers that now lie at his feet. He does not and cannot solve it, though he finds consideration to mitigate the sadness it most inspired. But he expresses it in all its awfulness in the most effective language and with the deepest feelings. And his expression of it has become a living part of English language. The fame of the Elegy, observed Edmund Goose, has spread to all countries and has exercised an influence on all the poetry of Europe, from Denmark to Italy, from France to Russia. With the exception of certain works of Byron and Shakespeare, no English poem has been so widely admired and imitated abroad. And after more than a century of existence, we find it as fresh as ever. It possesses the charm of incomparable felicity, of a melody that is not too subtle to charm every ear, of a moral persuasiveness that appeals to every generation, and of metrical skill that in each line proclaims the master. The Elegy may almost be looked upon as the typical piece of English verse, or poem of poems, not that it is most brilliant or original or profound lyric in our language, but because it combines in more balanced perfection than any other all the qualities that go to the production of a fine poetical effect. So this is how Edmund Goose has appreciated Gray's Elegy. Gray's Elegy has universal appeal and charm the heart of every reader without any distinction of color, race or creed. In the words of Bernard Groome, quote, "An elegy written in a country churchyard is one of the posthumous which have entered so deeply into the fabric of the English mind that it is impossible to view them with detachment. The feelings it expresses are so universal and the phrasing so perfect that it is difficult not to regard it as a thing which has always existed. In one sense, the Elegy is a very ordinary poem. In another and deeper sense, it is very original one." Unquote. So, each and every critic has been able to note that this Elegy has a universal appeal with a human touch. The poem describes the common lot of the villagers. Some of them may turn up into great men in all spheres, but they do not get proper opportunities. They have talents, but their poverty comes in the way of their development and they die unknown. The poet thinks, quote, "Perhaps in this neglected spot is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hence that the rod of empire might have swayed or waked to ecstasy the living lyre. But knowledge to their eyes her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did never unroll. Chill penury repressed their noble rage and froze the genial current of the soul. Unquote. So it was poverty that came in the way of developing and expanding their talents. Otherwise, they could have proved themselves very talented and great people of the world. Their stories would also have gone into the annals of time, into the history, as the other stories or other tales of great men have been celebrated. But at the same time, these poor people are saved from committing any crime. No doubt they do not rise to greatness, but they remain guiltless. Their party not only circumscribed alone their growing virtues, but their crimes confined. The elegy heralds the coming of the romantic age. The love of the downtrodden and other romantic elements are found in the poem. It makes a revolt against the classicism of his predecessors, who wrote drawing room poetry connected with the lives of the kings and princes or the aristocratic sections of the society. But Gray in this poem champions the cause of the common people and comes near to romantic poets. Here is an example through which we can illustrate this thought. Let not ambition mock their useful toy, their homely joys and destiny obscure, nor grandeur here with disdainful smile the short and simple annals of the poor. This stanza has been widely quoted and has a mass appeal to the humanists. The poem also shows the calm and happy life of the villagers. They are happy with their humble lot. Their party doesn't oppress them. Far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learn to stray. Along the cool, sequestered vale of life, they kept the noiseless tenor of their way. Unlike his predecessors who had not loved nature, Gray studied and imitated nature. In this poem, he has presented beautiful pen pictures of nature from his personal observation. He has given a vivid description of early morning time in these lines. The breezy call of incense-breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw-built shed, the cock's shrill clarion or the echoing horn, no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. He was also a great lover of nature, and that is evident in these lines once again. Haply some hoary-headed swain may say, often have we seen him at the peep of dawn, brushing with hasty steps the dews away to meet the sun upon the upland lawn. There at the foot of yonder nodding beech that reads its old fantastic roots so high, his listless length at noontide would he stretch and pour upon the brook that babbles by. All these lines clearly, or the imagery used from nature in these lines clearly and very candidly suggests that Gray was very sensitive towards his observations of nature and natural phenomena. Gray's elegy appeals to our heart, and some of its stanzas are at the lips of every English-speaking man. They are the most quoted ones in our society. Just see, full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark, unfathomable caves of ocean bear. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness on the desert air. Or, for example, on some fond breast the parting soul relies. Some pious drops the closing eye requires. Even from the tomb the voice of the nature cries. Even in our ashes live their wonted fires. Another striking feature of the poem is its autobiographical note. While thinking about the forefathers of the village, the poet begins to contemplate about himself. He hopes that after his death, some poet would inquire and think about him, just as he is doing right now in case of the village folk, the village forefathers. Gray's elegy is also rich in music. Wordsworth called it the highest poetry, wedded to the very breath of life, having a deep and lasting human significance. It is clear that the vast popularity which the elegy has earned and enjoyed is well deserved. Even the solitary critic like Swinburne, deeply and extravagantly unjust to the greater man, has been obliged to bless his poem with such high perfection and such universal appeal to the tenderest and noblest depths of human feeling, admitting again that as an elegiac poet, Gray holds for all ages to come his unassailable and sovereign station. The best praise comes from the pen of Dr. Johnson, who was very harsh on Gray. He writes, "The churchyard abounds with images which find a mirror in every mind, with sentiments to which every bosom returns an echo." Thank you very much.